Story, we joined in studio by Africa Diaspora Forum spokesperson Amir Sheikh. Mr. Sheikh, a very good evening. Welcome.
Good evening to you, Simpiwe, and to your listeners.
You were at the meeting between the International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor and the African Diaspora Forum. What transpired from that meeting?
Yes, I was actually part of the delegation that met the minister and engaged actually her. In the first instant when we went there and we saw the agenda and we saw it is a question and answer session, we thought it is actually a PR campaign by the minister to actually talk to us quickly before actually her trip's actually departure to the UNGA summit. But upon explanation of the situation and all that, it came to our attention that yes, the minister even have sacrificed some of her days, and she have even delayed her trip to New York in order to engage the migrant leadership on the challenges they are facing. But one thing that came out clearly was the minister actually took our request to engage us further and also engage the local community on the societal ills and the challenges that are facing us.
When you say it's a PR campaign, are you doubting her genuineness of having met you?
What we thought is that 2 hours was not actually enough to engage with the diaspora community and actually brings out the challenges they are facing in the country. But the way they put it was actually the minister will address us, the keynote address from the minister, and question and answer. And we thought it wasn't sufficient, but the minister reassured us this was the beginning and actually not the end of the engagements.
What is it that you wanted the minister to tackle on?
There are a lot of issues that were ranging from actually personal issues, issues of documentation which had no relevance with the minister. There were issues of actually regime change, which the minister very clearly said that I'm the Minister of International Cooperation, but not actually the Minister of International Revolution, and I cannot do much about what happens in your countries. But one thing that came out clear was that Africans need one another, and no country can isolate itself from its sister's country, and the situation that we are facing back at home. The South Africa, being the best democracy and the second best economy in the country, can actually do much about it. And I think in further engagement with the minister, it came out very clearly, yes, South Africa as a big brother can actually play a role in the continent, and also our leaders. An issue that came out clearly was that about the issues of actually hate crimes. Leaders who are not aware of the realistics in these countries, just tweeting and actually taking things out of proportions. And I think actually in the next engagement we will present as the leadership of the diaspora community, not only about our concerns, because there are a lot of myths and misconceptions, there are a lot of societal ills. There is a way we can actually bridge the gap. We are here, and we are here to stay. So we must, at least on behalf of our constituency, work on a way that at least we will not see these ever-resurgent attacks on migrants in this country that is tainting the good image and actually the receptive nature of the majority of South Africans.
When you say you expect South Africa to play a big brother role for all African migrants and for all African citizens, what is it that you expect the country to provide to foreign nationals living in South Africa?
The expectation is that, okay, South Africa, besides being a new democracy, is a country that is actually welcoming and receptive to actually many migrants in this country. I think its policy also on immigration is actually one that is friendly and welcoming. We are not actually put in encampment, we are actually afraid. And we need to sit with the minister and remove the myth and misconceptions surrounding our presence in the country. If our forefathers, the post-colonial leaders in the continent, who had no advancement of technology, whose economy was down, could come and vote for a united Africa and a greater, one that actually will mutually benefit one another. Today, while we are in advanced stage in terms of actually economy and in terms of actually digital and always, why can we not actually be on the forefront? Africa needs one another. The minister acknowledged migration is actually an international phenomena, and people will always be on the move, but the situation also must change from our countries. I would have loved to stay in Somalia for the rest of my days, but there are reasons or prevailing situations that made me actually to come that. And we hope that if certain issues can be discussed, and this is at not an A, we are not putting all the burden to South Africa to play the bigger role because it was once also assisted by fellow Africa. No, but the fact that they are in a position today to assist, and we're only asking them to assist where possible.
There have been reports of criminality by some of the foreign nationals selling drugs to young children and all sorts of social ills. So what do you make of such acts of criminality, even though some of them have not been proven, even though we haven't seen arrests on a wider scale? What do you make of this?
It's a fact that we cannot deny. There are a lot of societal ills, and every country and every community of us got actually members who are on the wrong side, but we want criminals to be treated as criminals. We are against the ethnizations of actually criminals, and also giving a tag to certain community that, you know, this community, you know, they are car hijackers, these are bank robbers, this community is actually drug dealers. That is not what we want. The other thing is that I will not say not all that we represent are actually in the right side of the law, but there are others who are on the wrong side, and I think the law must actually deal with it, and we must always look at the source of actually these societal ills. The issue that is rampant is actually drug, but tell me, what picture will it actually send when a former minister of intelligence wives is actually convicted or brought actually to court for actually dealing with issues of actually drugs in the country?
Mr. Sheikh, you mentioned that you expect South Africa to play a big brother role. How then would you envisage a situation where most of the members of the African continent or citizens of the African continent flock to South Africa despite the issues and the problems that South Africa face?
The issue is that actually, okay, as I said, South Africa is very receptive. If South Africa don't want, the borders that are now borders must be closed. But it can't live on its own. South Africa is one country that have invested greatly in the African continent. And wherever you go in this country, I'm from a very tiny nation called Somalia that is actually in turmoil for the past 3 decades. But South Africans have now also invested in that Somalia. You will find South African in South Sudan, a very tiny nation that is only independent for less than 5 years, and they are actually put in there. If South Africa want to be in all this Africa and benefiting from their resources and everything, then South Africa need actually to reciprocate the good gestures of the Africans and play. The only reason we are saying it needs to play this role is that because it is in a position. Yesterday when they were not in a position and they were under apartheid, actually a gruesome apartheid regime, they moved out to Africa and they got the assistance. Today, they are very fortunate they are in a position being the best, second best economy in the continent, the best democracy, and a hope for many Africans. It is at least not too much to ask actually to play such a role.
Now, the figures that we've always been fed by the government, particularly the Department of Home Affairs, point to a certain figure, yet the reality is there's far more foreign nationals who are undocumented in South Africa. What do you think should be done to those, and especially who enter the country illegally? The
Immigration Act is very clear. If I cannot actually provide any sort of documentation, then there is a place called Lindela Holding Facility or Portsmouth that is awaiting me. You can't be in a foreign country, engage in activities that are against the law of the country and find yourself freely. South Africa is not a banana republic. It's a country that there is a rule of law. It's a country that at least, you know, I need to document myself. And the process is very easy. If you come to South Africa, you have got 14 days to go to any of the refugee reception center and document yourself freely without actually paying any cents. So I will not actually know why someone, a migrant in South Africa, will opt not to be documented when it is easy despite the corruption on other sides.
So in short, you support the calls that those who are in South Africa illegally should be deported?
Yes, I support actually the call very much. And those that are tainting the good image of the migrant and engaging in activities that are not in line with the Constitution, they need to be deported.
All right, Mr. Sheikh, thank you so much for
You're welcome. Thank you. Lovely.
Well, that was African Diaspora Forum spokesperson Amir Sheikh speaking to us in our Johannesburg studios.